end the session. Otherwise, whatever we speak, others will hear.
With the rise of technology and online learning, the international higher education seems to be emerging across the globe. The imparting of this international education is happening at the touch of a button. International higher education has been shown to provide both intellectual and cultural benefits to students, which can help in their future employment. There are two most important trends in higher education: the emergence of online learning and efforts to internationalize the curriculum and student body. We at Amity, and including many other universities globally, are embracing both of these trends. Online education offers the opportunity to bring together students living in different countries in common courses and programs. Before I introduce the speakers of today's session, I would like to guide the audience as to how you can interact with the speakers. If you wish to ask the presenters any questions, please type it in the chat box and I will be directing them to the concerned speaker. We will also be launching polls throughout the session, so we invite you to participate by selecting your responses when they appear in your chat. I would now like to welcome our speakers for the session. We have Professor Helmut, Professor Joe, Dr. Priya, and Professor Avinash. Professor Helmut is Deputy Vice Chancellor Global Academics at Torrens University, Australia. He bridges the overall academic undertakings of the Office of the Vice Chancellor and Deans of the faculties with the digital and global enterprise endeavor. He is also working with Vice President DGE across Torrens, Australia and New Zealand and its US education partners, sitting within Strategic Education Inc. in the building of a global education platform. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Am I visible at the moment to you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for inviting me today, and I apologize to all of the people watching that I've been sick for the last 2 days, so if I sound a bit croaky or I cough from time to time, I apologize for that. But fortunately, we don't yet have online cross-infection, so we're all quite safe there. So I've been asked to speak to this, and I'm going to speak from the point of view of the organization I'm working with. I'm quite aware that many of you watching this and taking part know as much or more than I do about these things. So what I want to do is just rehearse a little the sort of stages we've been going through and the considerations we have in respect of online education. The organization I work for, Torrens University, is part of a conglomerate that includes the owners in the United States with universities in the United States as well, and our media design school in New Zealand. So we operate all over Australia, New Zealand, through the United States, and then of course with our overseas and online endeavors. So that used to be part of an organization called Laureate International Universities. And that's where I know Dr. Priya Mary from another life when she also worked for another organization in that conglomerate. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. And I trust that presentation is visible to you. So global and international education now is my slight rewording of the words Priya gave me. And I've been asked to speak about how online education can pave the way for students across the globe, transcending age, gender, and geographic boundaries. And I mean, that's a familiar challenge for all of us. So where is Torrens global education going in this mix? So I'd like to start off with something that you've all had occasion to argue and to rehearse yourself. I get so tired of comparisons of face-to-face learning with online learning. Which is better? Is online learning as good as face-to-face learning? And these days I just say, that's the wrong question. I don't want to answer the wrong question. The real question is, what can appropriately and richly designed and deployed online learning modalities offer our students? What can it offer them that gives them choice and flexibility when face-to-face is neither practical for them or even impossible for them, or maybe just not desired because of their lifestyles? So this is about creating another whole realization of delivery methodologies that doesn't have to argue with face-to-face. No one's arguing with face-to-face lecturing. That's as old as our society is. This is about enriching the framework of offers that is available to us. So at Torrens Global Education, we've created a phenomenon called digital global education. And that's been set up in parallel to all of the faculties. We use the word faculty to mean the constructs for academic teaching, not like the Americans use them to mean staff. And sometimes we also use the word verticals. So the faculties are discipline-based, business, education, all of the other areas, health, hospitality, etc. But this is like a parallel stream that deals with our digital global offerings. And how we're going to build that. There are two new key roles in that area, the Vice President Digital Global and myself as Deputy Vice Chancellor Global. So we're working to create a platform that will deliver education to the broadest range of people around the world, from both our own Torrens programs, from the New Zealand programs, and also from the American partner programs. So I won't leave this up too long, but all of us are aware in our marketing departments where various checks are done from time to time about what the opportunity for education is abroad. And the big thing is here that online education is growing at 5 times the rate of face-to-face higher education in our research. Now, that's not just because we have found ourselves in the global epidemic of COVID. That was happening in any case, but certainly COVID, in all of its horrific nature, has rather jumped us forward in as much as my university, for instance, in 4 states has had the doors closed on and off for over a year now. And everything converted to online very quickly, to even those people who were to be in the country, either domestic or international, had to convert to online to continue their education. Many of them didn't want to, but the interesting thing is many grew to love it. I do not think we will ever click back like an elastic band to where we were before, because some of the things that forward-looking educationists are trying to get our academics to engage with, our students to engage with, the market to engage with, have been fast-tracked by COVID, and people have found some of the lessons have been very positive. So it's very important for us, therefore, and by us, I mean those people in my organization, to really blend synchronous with asynchronous learning. And that's a cultural matter too. We found at first our staff would have the idea of asynchronous learning as a model for what you would get if you couldn't get synchronous learning. And they'd use that in their language. They'd say to their classes, okay, we're now going to have a breakout, but you people who are watching this in a recording won't be able to do that. So it was very negative talking down, when in fact, it was up to the organization to build its asynchronous learning programs in a way that gave equal value, and it allowed the student to think, I'm going to choose how I learn, synchronously or asynchronously, online or face-to-face, blended or non-blended, because that's my choice. And I want to go to an organization where I have that range of choices. So that allows, of course, for 24/7 delivery, because we have students all over the world. It allows And it requires us to develop our staff and support our programs and build their capacity to deliver online, to incorporate asynchronous learning strategies, not as a consolation, but as a immediate first past the post offer. You as a student have a right to engage with us asynchronously if you want, and expect us to build our collateral, build our material, have our conversations with you, do our assessment with you. That doesn't make your asynchronous learning second rate or second choice. And so we need to provide for that sort of engagement and the academic technical support, of course. And the big thing for me, and that's what I'm very much involved with, particularly with our third-party arrangements and overseas partnerships, is the quality assurance. Because we are really required by our national regulator to be able to assure the quality of what we do and stand behind the qualifications, no matter how we deliver them, that's our choice. But we cannot step away from our quality assurance and quality management responsibilities. So what are the things we need to do there? We need to build our program design and our deployment and assessment modalities in a way that aid learning rather than provide obstacles. Assessment's not just about seeing whether you've passed a certain level, but it's for us all to know what have you learned and what remains to be learned. Allowing students choice for timing study matched to their working lives. These are all of the issues I was mentioning before. We really are doing a great deal of work with our staff training and learning from our errors as well as from our successes in how we engage in a broader platform of deliveries. And we do need to deliver a broad platform of choices. Not all students are the same. They don't all want the same thing. They don't all come from the same cultural background. They don't all come from the same business background. And many of them come to us because, yes, they want a qualification that's internationally recognized from a developed country. So we have to think to ourselves, well, what are we doing here? Why are we going into their countries and teaching them? What have we got to offer? And balance that with allowing them to contextualize their learning within their own business modalities, their own cultural requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And that's so easy for me to talk about. You know, all of you have been through this. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of work building the curricula to allow that. See, one of the things we've been able to do with online study is establish a network of drop-in centers with partners. So for instance, let me choose one with our partners, Ahitsua in Nigeria. Very good students, very highly developed students, but they sometimes have challenges in terms of software, hardware, workstations, connectivity, etc. So we've been pursuing with partners building of a network of drop-in centers where the students can do our online courses, taught and assessed and evolved by our academics, but they have somewhere to go if they have technical problems, or they need a workstation, or they need a computer, or they need some extracurricular tutorial service. So this is a really key direction we're going in, to be online, but allowing them connect where they need to connect. We're also establishing a separate network of 24/7 recruitment and student administration offices in Latin America and in Sri Lanka, so that we cover every student around the world can call in for help at any time in their day and not find we're closed down because we're in Australia and it's nighttime. So these are parts of our strategies, ensuring that students who are trusting us with their future, and you know, we are a for-profit university, trusting us with their investment to get what they need from it. Although I will say, in many developing nations like Africa, we deliver courses much more cheaply than we do to the developed world, and that's part of our for good strategy. But nonetheless, for them, it's an enormous and a really big dedication of their time and their resources, and they tie up their hopes in us. You know, we have a moral obligation, we have a duty of care for them to ensure that they get the quality that anybody would hope for from any decent education program. Now, one of the ways we deal with that is how we develop those programs. So we have a center called the Product Innovation Center. Now, as you'll all know, Australia had constituted its tertiary education platform pretty much in the Oxbridge model, the British model, where the intelligence, the academic intelligence, the knowledge, and the scholarship sits in the hands of the academics delivering programs. And so we do that as universities have always done. But we have also recognized that people who are very good in their fields of study and even at scholarship are not necessarily at the top of their game in terms of how you create online learning projects, how you create knowledge transfer in the digital arena. So we have a product innovation team that records videos, alumni videos, that deals with recognition of prior learning agreements with various companies, that works with initiatives looking into the future, especially omni-channel. I'm going to just move that sitting in my way there. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about TenX in a moment. It'll make sense of that, and improved subject efficiency and building a digital learning metaverse, because that is really important. In respect to what we can deliver to deliver the quality of the product. So product innovation deals with product strategy. Now, product strategy is usually where the business, the organization, the university decides what is their entire academic offering, what do they retire, what do they add, what do they build on. Course design and development is where they come together closely with academics and work with the academic boards through that. Alternative learning and short courses and MOOCs, and we have now skills badges, starts to talk about the very many other types of program or offering that one needs to have in a contemporary in a contemporary university, and a lot of experience in the learning advisors and the learning designers around digital learning environment and digital media. Because I don't know about you guys, but years ago when we were all starting this online journey, it tended to be a bit dry and a bit online version of what we already knew, instead of being designed purposefully with rich media and understanding of how online education works. So they, as you see in this Venn diagram, deal with a range of issues that brings everybody together. They have a project management team, the learning experience team, which I've just been talking about, the online learning environment team, really understanding how we can make cutting edge pedagogy and andragogy and hydragogy work in a contemporary way, and the digital media design team. So we can build the rich media we need to underpin to make the learning experience interesting and valuable for the students. Let me just talk about an example case study here. And I mentioned before that Torrens University had a partnership with, or has still a partnership with Pearl Academy in India for online delivery of a top-up Bachelor of Design year. This is not a huge group, but just to acquaint you with Pearl, a renowned and well-known teaching institution in creative design and arts, particularly in fashion and other related areas. And these are the sorts of areas that you might think, certainly our staff might have thought 10 years ago, would be the most difficult to replicate in an online environment. Not only that, these students have finished more than 2 years with perhaps 3 years, perhaps 4, of face-to-face study in a very intense face-to-face atelier method of education in India, but then to convert into an internationally recognized bachelor, they need to do a whole year of study at a university, and we do it with them in an online fashion. So just imagine, these students had very little online knowledge. The staff had very little online knowledge. They were quite traditional. And so we had to build this framework around it of student support, with student mentors. We have success coaches that work with teams to support their orientation, help them develop and culturally adapt to our university. Now you imagine they're over in India living their normal lives within their normal domestic and social context, but they are mentally online, on screen, transferring themselves to a different reality. I think you all appreciate this is quite a challenge. So we needed academic skills sessions for them. And because in this particular program, there was some synchronous, it wasn't all asynchronous work, we had to timetable to align with India Standard Time so that we ensure that they could learn. These students came from families who thought they should be in class from morning till night, Monday morning till Friday night. That's what a good student does. That's what a good university offers. That's not how the modern Australian university works. We have mostly students who work 1 or 2 days a week and study 3 days a week, or who are more mature, or who go back to university afterwards. So, but we had to make this acceptable to them and their families and get their families to understand the value of the nature of the education. We built communities of practice, and we ensured there were culturally aligned briefs. So that's part of our internationalization of the curriculum to do that. So they were not big groups. This is just one example of one small group, but 86% successfully completed in their first trimester, 85 in their second trimester, of students who had never been online before. Now, I don't know about you guys, but our successful completion rates of online study have not historically been as good as our successful completion rates of face-to-face. But in the last 2 or 3 years, that's turned around, and it's now almost becoming the opposite. So have a look quickly here, just 2 or 3 projects. Why I'm showing you these is because it was certainly designers in the early part of our move into online education methodologies who said, oh, we can't do this online. Design is about things and objects and people and touching things and making things. Impossible to do it online. And yet these people, in the space of 1 year, these Indian students at a distance, have turned around and done award-winning projects. Projects like this one, which talks about protection of child abuse. So really student-centered around issues that are important to them within their culture, product design, packaging, that sort of thing. Fashion design. Now, our fashion design program is a very commercial program, which is about designing ranges and having those ranges created and manufactured in large scale. So here's, I just showed you these just to show you that it's sort of canceled the idea of what you can or you can't do online. You can't do this, you can't do that. Actually, there's very little you can't do online. You know, as long as 10 years ago, I was in the United States watching an example of medical surgeons learning to operate on internal organs online. Would you believe it? They were actually distance learning surgery skills. And they said at the time, well, you know, we go into surgery nowadays and we don't just cut a big hole and dig in with our hands anymore. We work with probes and digital instruments and we go through small cuts. So just creating a bit of distance there doesn't make it so much more difficult. So what I thought I'd show you now are just some examples of forward-looking collateral. Because as we open up to online learning, we can't just have one online learning platform. What we're trying to do is build a digital platform that will allow all students to come into the organization, and when they're on the platform, they decide which way they want to go. Do they want to go to, even including face-to-face learning, but do they want to go into a hybrid learning circumstance or a blended learning circumstance or a fully online, or do they want to be fully online for one trimester and then be hybrid in another trimester, so that that student has the capacity to decide what balance of types of learning they may want to do in their program. And of course, that is a choice some students have, but as I said at the outset, some don't. Some are in developing countries, a long way away, don't have huge financial resources. And we have to think, how can we give those people similar opportunity, similar understanding of what education can do for them to change their lives? And it's amazing when you've been working in this area. And I know some of you will have better or similar stories of how much we've been able to go out through the online platform and touch people all around the world with the promise of how education can improve their lives. Let me just give a few little examples from our group of companies. One model we have is called Sofia Learning. Now, Sofia is a platform that students can subscribe to. They don't pay a fee like a university fee, as they are accustomed to. They pay a monthly subscription. And then in that monthly subscription, they can take these, what we call 100 level, early level subjects in their studies, not the more sophisticated years of second and third and fourth year study, but early level studies. And they can take as many as they can actually show they have met the requirements of in that time, but can't do more than 2 at a time. So to take on a third one, they have to finish one of the first 2. But if they're mature, or they know a lot of the stuff already, or they are very hardworking, they can accelerate, but they can also just repay their subscription and continue for as long as they like. These are not fixed terms, so they can just keep going until they're ready to submit and until they're ready to show that they can demonstrate that they can meet the learning objectives. Now, that's offered through the Sofia is a separate set of our set of companies, but we as a university can say to our students, well, if you're struggling or you're not ready to enroll yet, or you're finding it a bit hard, you're overseas with a visa to come to us, but the borders are closed and you're sick of waiting, so you feel like dropping out, we'll say, do one of these Sofia courses. We'll pay for it, it'll be free for you. And if you succeed, we'll credit it against one of the subjects in your program. I mean, they're specific, of course. We've had mapping for which program will accept a credit from which Sofia platform subject. But this is something that some students, depending on their nature, are attracted to a great deal. As this student says, it's an engaged online teaching method. Much of it is automated, but they have access to human beings and people and responses when they want it. But it's in-depth and challenging, and it allows them to move through it at their pace and when they want to complete. We have another model with our partners, which we're working on, called Flexpath. Now, this is a fixed 12-week subscription period. Again, 2 subjects may be taken concurrently, and more can be taken if the student meets the course objectives. No, outside. If more students meet the course objectives, please go out on online, out. Self-paced as opposed to guided path. Competency is identified as including knowledge, skills, and professional disposition, and that's really important because in Australia, competency is sometimes considered to be what technical and skills education is involved with, but this is a particular blend of knowledge, skills, and professional disposition. Again, they're assessed by demonstration of their competency at least twice in a period, and they use a competency map that drills down to details, utilizes a 4-step grading model. So this begins every month. Students can enroll every month and continue to re-enroll every month, but in that fixed subscription period, unlike Sofia, which they don't submit until they're ready. Now, I'm showing you these because these are different models we're building to deal with different students, to deal with different parts of our stakeholder group to find the right model for them. Now, this is an interesting program. What is TenX? As I said before, we have to really build our understanding and the understanding of our staff around asynchronous strategies for delivery. So what is TenX? It's a program that takes top online instructors and provides them with data-driven teaching strategies and the resources they need to be successful. It's not AI, but it is certainly AI enhanced. They're real people, and it's a bit like having a huge fact sheet, but with, frequently asked question sheet, but with visuals, with staff answering that question that's guided to that student the moment that student asks that question. So it requires huge input at the building it end, huge input at the setting up of it end. But then once it's all set up, it continues under its own stream somewhat. So you use video to create human connections and a sense of community through asynchronous videos and through building that large repository. Feedback has to be quick, responses have to be quick, grading has to be done quickly. And it also engages a lot with gamification strategies that are renewed on a daily basis, bonus questions, extra add-ons. So it's not some old tired pre-recorded program that never changes from 1 week to the next, but it is actually dynamic. What the resources required to make this work are the technology, of course, tools such as Action Dashboard and the feedback generator that increase visibility into classroom trends and reduce the time spent on monotonous tasks. A team of teaching assistants to assist with day-to-day running of the course, to increase support for the students and free up time for the instructor to help struggling students. And of course, the learning technologists, just like we have with our PI group that I mentioned to you before. The digital learning team provides high-level real-time support for technology and classroom updates. So that this particular program has a variety of benefits. It allows instructors to teach at scale. So you're going to have your best instructors teaching large groups of people, rather like in the old-fashioned huge lecture theatre mode, except more immediate, more quick, higher turnaround, and a much greater range of those instructors. They can support a large number of students, but the program still offers a personalized experience in the classroom and in the engagement with the students. So the instructors take an active role in their course, and rather than just acting as facilitators, they're more efficient and they're more effective, and it provides students with the help and feedback they need. So overall, instructors have the support and tools they need to help their students, and students have the help and support they need to be successful. Now, this is on top of, not instead of, all the things we have always engaged with. We still have a whole range of face-to-face, blended and hybrid learning modalities, and we still have face-to-face, we still have online learning in the slightly more traditional model of being synchronous or blending synchronous with asynchronous. So this is not about do it this way or do it that way, but it's about building a network or a framework of possible offerings so that different learners who have different needs, who have different learning styles, who are in different parts of their life cycle in terms of they're young, are they mature, are they employed, do they have a lot of time, do they have little time, can choose from these different models to build a learning program that will help engage them to achieve what they need to achieve. This is our current slogan, love what you do. It's about all of the stakeholders, the staff and the students really engaging with and loving what they do. So what's important as well as this is that I'm working on another whole program on internationalization of the curriculum. That's something you're all familiar with as well. And globalization, which we take to be different things. We think of globalization as the development of a political economic network of nation states interacting on the basis of interdependencies and largely enabled by information technology to facilitate networking, interactivity, and collaboration. And in parallel, we think of internationalization as the process of developing capacity and practices to enable functioning in this network across boundaries as an individual, a group, as an organization, or equally at state or regional level. So what we're working on very hard is to build our understanding of how we embed internationalization, that is thinking in cross-cultural terms, within the development of our curricula. Because it's a kind of balance. The students do want to come to us and learn from us because they think we know something. But what we also know is that what we know has to be blended with what they need, and their needs are different from different areas and different circumstances and different age groups. So we have to keep that vitality of the student voice informing us of what it is we need to do for them. So I should probably stop there, but I was just trying to give you a bit of an overview of some of the challenges we foresee. We have had incredible buy-in by people in the online through COVID, forcing them into something that they might not have chosen. So it's accelerated that whole process. The bad news of COVID, that's come with a bit of a silver lining. And that goes for staff as well. Staff who said, no, online teaching, it's not for me, suddenly are now saying, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. This really works. So I think I might leave it there. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Dr. Helmut. Give me a moment, Dr. Divya. Helmut, it was amazing, the amount of knowledge that you have shared. I'm very sure our chairman, Mr. Ajit, and our director, Professor Abhinash, would love to have some questions answered by you. But before that, I have a 10-minute video. I couldn't get an Australian expert and an American expert together in one time zone. So Dr. Joe has sent his video, but and that's a 10-minute video. But before I play it, over to you, Dr. Divya, to introduce who Dr. Joe is.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Professor Helmut, for sharing your insights on how education has gone beyond geographical boundaries at the touch of a button. You also shared with the audience various considerations and strategies to be taken care of while deploying online education, which are being practiced in Torrens University. And the audience will definitely agree with me that the students' projects that you showcased were very creative, especially when they have been created on digital platform. I would like to ask the audience to put their questions in the question and answer section if they have any questions for Professor Helmut. I would welcome Mr. Ajit Chauhan, Chairman, Amity University Online, in the session. Now I would like to introduce the next speaker of the day, Professor Joe Sallustio, MD. Professor Joe is holding the position of Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President, Claremont Lincoln University. Due to unavoidable circumstances, Professor Joe is not available today. He could not join us, but he has shared his insights via a video which we would be playing now. He is responsible for overseeing and administration of system-wide operational performance through strategic leadership in planning, directing, and evaluating the business affairs of the university. His areas of oversight include finance, financial aid, enrollment, marketing, human resources, compliance, student services, information technology, business-to-business relationships, and vendor management. We are grateful to you, Professor Joe, that you could spare some time with us to share your thoughts over here, which will be shown by through the video.
We can't hear the, there's no audio in the video, Dr. Divya. Might have to check.
Yes, sir.
So I will check that. Meanwhile, Professor Abhinash and Ajit sir, if you have any questions to Mr. Helmut, meanwhile, give me 1 minute to check the audio.
Yeah, I think you're going to share it with audio. There's another option for that. And then,
yeah.
But in the meantime, Dr. Helmut, what an amazing session by you, and we really appreciate the time that you took out this afternoon to come and address the team. The innovations that you are doing at Torrens are truly remarkable. Sofia, TenX, Flexpath, your product innovation process, very, very impressive. And we have learned a lot by going through your presentation. And I'm sure the team has also taken a lot of takeaways and pointers which they can utilize and must utilize for their day-to-day operations. Now I know why Dr. Priya always tells me that her experience in Torrens was remarkable, because it truly reflects on the people and the kind of people and the kind of processes that she worked on, and that truly must have had an impact and reflected in the kind of enthusiasm and work culture that was there at Torrens or passed on through Torrens and the team. Thank you, Dr. Helmut. Post this conference, we should interact as well and see that if there are any opportunities of collaboration, if there are opportunities for top-up programs or other programs that we can do together with Amity and Torrens, or even implement some best practices via some platforms that you have shown, that would be lovely. And I'm sure the faculty and team at Amity Online would highly appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Ajit. I feel the same. We can learn from each other. I just do need to note that we are part of a conglomerate now under Strategic Education Incorporated in the United States. And some of these initiatives are being run by different parts of the organization, and then we share them with each other. So Torrens is not the originator of everything wonderful under the sun. We do some things very well, and we share new things with our partners as well. And so, yes, I'd certainly look forward to further conversation with you and all of you in the future.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I'm aware of the conglomerate, and we will go through the right route and see. But your example about the medical doctors doing distance learning programs was very interesting, and it reminded me of the whole transformation of online education. And actually, if you look at 100 years of medical education, and the way it's transformed exponentially. And if you look at 100 years of regular education, it's been at a standstill. But like you said, that COVID has fast-tracked that. It's not transformed it. Education was on the lines of transformation, but COVID definitely fast-tracked that. So you were very right in pointing that out as well.
Years ago when I used to be Dean of Design, when we started our journey of online in design, I would have students come to me and say, I'm not interested in working online. And I'd have to say to them, what do you want to do in your life? And they'd say, I want to be a graphic designer. Or I'd say, do you know how much of your working life will be online? 95% of what you do in the future will be with clients and with projects around the world. And all of your social media is online. You're confusing what you already do and what your career path will require of you with a learning methodology that you think is unfamiliar to you, but you're already there.
Okay, I think the video is ready.
Let's get started, yeah. Yes. Great, Dr. Priya. So
I would
think there's
yeah, I would request everybody please to mute themselves. I believe then we'll be able to hear the video. Okay, right. So thank you, sir.
Was the video playing?
yeah, but it's not audible, Dr. Priya. So I think if you can, if the
Okay.
team can just share the video with audio, there's an option of
Yes.
sharing with audio.
So, okay, so I have one question for Dr. Helmut. Just one question. What is one main challenge that you have seen in what is one main challenge that you've seen in integrating international students into the academic culture of Torrens?
Oh, I'm afraid there are many. It's going to be hard to boil it down to one, but I would say for any online learning, there is a necessity to build a sense of community and interchange. And we've been building all of our orientation programs, our social clubs, our extracurricular activity into online versions as well. Because getting the learning program up in a useful way was one challenge, but getting students to feel they are part of an organization and to have some of the experiences that somebody on a campus might have is another. So we've had to build study groups, useful conversation groups, extracurricular hobby groups. We also are in the process of building some scaffolded support right up front for students so that when they come to us, we like to pride ourselves that we will give any student a chance that we can within the regulatory environment. But when they come to us, we want them to undertake some activities before they start and build a scaffolded support project around them of learning resources. Are they slightly weak in numerology? Are they slightly numeracy? Are they slightly weak in written language or the particular written language and vocabulary of their discipline? Or if we can get to these things early and work with the students, it's not just online, but I would say it does apply to the online students particularly. If we can get to them early with backup study, backup, and in an interesting way, not just to upload them with more work and because some of them are struggling to find time as it is, but in a way that really enables them to deliver the outcomes that they need to realize their results. I think that's a real challenge. The other thing perhaps I skipped across in my presentation is we deliver programs in China with a partner in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing being able to speak a second language. It's another thing being able to write postgraduate dissertation quality work in a second language. So we deliver MBAs and global project management and Master of Education through a partner in Mandarin. And to do that, we had to set up the quality assurance capacity with Mandarin staff, the Blackboard site in Mandarin, all of the attendant media like enrollment forms and information forms and stuff. We had to put Mandarin speaking staff into the quality unit that does the annual quality reviews of all programs. But what we've done there is we've decoupled, and I feel really strongly about the value of this, we've decoupled our education offering from the tyranny of language. In Australia, universities have been comfortable for many years saying, oh, people only come to us because they want to learn English, they must learn English, they must get their IELTS, they must do all that. Well, guess what? In a globalized world, that's not the case. People in China do not feel that people in Australia are superior because they can speak English. They just don't. So we have to go to them. The mountain has to go to Muhammad and say, we we have the capacity to offer what we're good at offering to you on your terms as well. And so I'd say if you're saying one big thing, it's crossing the language and cultural divide to meet students on their terms.
Yes. And I think Professor Abhinash, you introduced the online education in our African continent. Would you, and we did face certain challenges in that collaboration also. Would you, before we finish this session, would you like to highlight maybe 2 challenges and your experiences about it?
Initially, and even today, it was internet speed problem, number 1, and number 2 was the culture there, and the language, of course. When we started it way back in 2009, there was, it's initiated with the satellite mode of teaching. And there was a lot of challenges over the period of time, the buffering of conversations and many more, even the conduct of examinations. So during the high-level visit in our campus from the ministry, we initiated and introduced them this concept of online teaching and the format to ministry, and which was conceived very soon. We had to give a lot of presentation, and finally this is on. And since last 2020 onwards, this is completely through online and convenient to the students, still facing some challenges in some of the remotest part of the African nation, but still better. Even the examination is also very convenient, as I've already briefed, that remote proctoring examination. So more or less, we have overcome with these challenges of teaching to the African students. Thank you, Priya.
And of course, Africa is a huge place with lots of different people in it. We in Nigeria, we're now working with a partner on this drop-in center. So people who don't have connectivity and don't have quality software and don't have quality hardware have somewhere to go to engage with the learning program. So you need to build more capacity on those offerings. I'm interested, what part of Africa are you speaking about, Professor Abhinash?
This is almost all, because we are handling 38 countries of Africa. Some countries have overcome with these challenges. Namibia is, of course, one of the very frequent user of internet. But things are now, things have progressed with super connectivities in certain locations and certain countries, and things are better now. But prior to that, Dr. Priya, Dr. Helmut, it was wonderful listening to you. You talked about the challenges of face-to-face and online educations, and the similarity of face-to-face, distance, and the online education. I would like to comment here is that the government of India has combined the regulatory aspects of both online and the distant education. And we find no differences in distance and online education, almost, except for few things. There is that the examination that we talked of under the online system, the examination can be conducted online, wherein the distant education, the examination possibilities are through the CBT model, which is computer-based test, wherein the student has to be monitored physically by the proctor and the invigilator. And second challenges would be for the distant education here in the country is that, it is still within the territorial jurisdiction of the parameters. That is one, wherein the online education has no boundaries. So this is few differences. However, if you talk of the syllabus and the content, it has to be remain the same of conventional education, regular education. You cannot run any program which do not follow in your conventional education. So you have to run the programs which are already exist in the conventional education, the regular education. Also, the examination systems are more or less the same. Fortunately, in recent notification from the government is that the online and the distant education degree is at par to the regular degree. So which is a great breathing space for Indian learners. So this is a small reply to your
So Avinash, I think
challenges.
Save the regulatory explanation conversation for another session with Dr. Helmut. It will take more than 10 minutes to explain the Indian regulations for online and distance. But I'm sure that you will get an opportunity in the near future to have a detailed conversation with Dr. Helmut offline, where you can take him through the entire regulatory framework and how it's transitioned from distance to online and then merged into one regulation. Dr. Helmut, it's a complicated conversation, but it requires more time and dedicated.
Than we have here, yes.
So Professor Avinash will definitely take you through it, but it's been an interesting time in India, as Professor Avinash mentioned, and we would love to take you and the team through that conversation.
Thank you, sir. So over to you, Priya.
Over to you, Dr. Divya.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Helmut, for taking up the questions and giving us insights. Now, I believe the session was very enlightening and there were many takeaways and key points for the audience. So I would like to thank again Professor Helmut, Ajit sir, Professor Avinash, and Dr. Priya for joining us and sharing your views and experiences for the audience. So audience can join us back again at 11 a.m., just 3 minutes to go, Indian time, for more insightful sessions from our renowned speakers. So I again thank you again. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's lovely speaking with you all.
Thank you, sir. Same here.